And quite frankly, eventually, when Trump is projecting that there's going to be a terrorist attack and it's going to be because somebody entered the southern border and because Border Patrol couldn't do their job, that's just quite frankly, that's a given. And quite frankly, the Border Patrol can create that scenario. So one of the way the Border Patrols can create gotaways, and one way we did it back in the 90s to create gotaways because we didn't like Clinton at the time and wanted George W. Bush to win the election, is we just didn't chase them. We let them go, and then we counted the number of migrants. We were ordered not to go north of Highway 94. So then management could say, well, we didn't tell them not to chase them. But if they get north of the first paved highway, which in some areas is 2 minutes from the border road in Campo, in some areas it's probably like an hour from the border road walking through the brush. And so it depends a lot. And so essentially what they do is they create their own gotaways. Welcome back, everyone. This is Jen Budd, former senior patrol agent with the United States Border Patrol. With me again is my partner in laughing at all this absurdity and crying at all of this cruelty, Marianna Trevino Wright you're from McAllen today, McAllen, Texas today. How are you doing?
Things are good in McAllen today. It's going to be a balmy 80 degrees or so, and we're looking forward to taking the boat out this afternoon on the Rio Grande if the winds cooperate.
I think here we're kind of still in this kind of. It's not as bad as the rains last week that are now in Arizona, probably past Arizona, probably in New Mexico headed. No, those should miss you. They should go north of you, but it's still kind of cold here in San Diego and kind of drizzly and rainy and stuff. So we're kind of enjoying that because we don't usually get that kind of stuff. But I can't believe it's already 80 degrees in McAllen.
It was in the 70s. Today it's going to be in the 80s. So we have these 50, 60 degree temperature swings in about 48 hours.
That's just not healthy.
our poor plants are bipolar, our wardrobes are bipolar.
It's okay. We're all bipolar too. So everything's gone bipolar. Join us. I wanted to talk just a little bit, just starting off. I wanted to revisit Eagle Pass. We were talking a lot about Eagle Pass last week and the political theater that is going on with Greg Abbott, the political theater response by the Biden administration to pretend like, they don't do these same cruel feats and stuff, but either way, whatever. But I think one of the things I've noticed is this has been going on for weeks, and now all of a sudden they're like not so much talking about the invasion anymore because the numbers of crossing are really down. And one of the things that I really keyed in on is all in January. What do we see on Fox News, on the right-wing news, and then even in mainstream media on MSNBC, ABC, and all those people? What did we see? We saw that Texas was being invaded. Greg Abbott was saying it's an invasion. We're fighting for our lives down here. We're fighting for our country, our sovereignty, and this and that. And then we get the numbers. We get the numbers from CBP as to how many people Border Patrol apprehended, which pretty much means how many people have given up. And the numbers, I'm not kidding you, they were so low that it averaged out to be each agent in the Border Patrol would have to arrest 9 people in the month. That is ridiculous. You should be able to arrest 9 people in every hour. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And yet nobody in the media is saying, oh, we got it wrong. But now right-wing media is claiming that Joe Biden is bribing the Mexican cartels not to cross people and all this. So they just make up whatever. And yet at the same time, the media doesn't hold them responsible. Your numbers are so ridiculously low. They're lower than in the 90s. They're lower than in the 2000s. They're lower than in the Trump administration. Numbers go up and down each month. It's hard to say what it is, but it tells you that a lot of the pictures that the media was using in January weren't from January. Well, they had to be from months before.
My favorite part is, and you see this always, when the apprehensions go down, they start talking about encounters. So the
Mm-hmm.
numbers that will be publicized will be Border Patrol encounters. And, I had a group of college students here for their border immersion experience not long ago. And we went out walking along the border wall and all of that, encountered a Border Patrol agent. And they're not supposed to talk to people, in the field, especially not people who are videotaping them. And these graduate students had their phones out, they're recording the agent and his interaction, but he was very proud of himself. He told them that there are days when he encounters the same migrants 5 times. Like they'll
Yep.
cross, he'll catch them, they'll be driven to the station, driven to the bridge, sent marching back into Mexico, and they cross again 2 hours
Yep.
later. And so that one person counts 5 times as an
Yep.
encounter, even
Yep.
though they're not allowed into the country, allowed to stay. So we've got that manipulation of data. And then my favorite, the gotaways.
The got away. Well, let me back up to the encounters real quick. The encounters. So let's say, Mariana, that you come to my checkpoint and I ask you what your citizenship is, and I don't believe you. And so I'm going to go in and run your index fingerprints on the ident machine, which is what takes the digital fingerprints, just to check you. And I'm going to hold you for 4 hours and run all these checks to make sure you are actually legally here in the United States. And oops, it turns out you are legally here in the United States. So then what am I going to do? Then I let you go because you're here legally in the United States. You will file a complaint and it will go nowhere because I can hold you for as long as I want to determine your citizenship. And it is not my burden to prove your citizenship. It is your burden to prove your citizenship. And that will be charged as an encounter. Your fingerprints were entered into ident, so that will be counted as an encounter, although you were released. So the numbers that they give, there's a lot of leeway in how you read them and how you can understand how they're collected and so forth. But to mention the gotaways, yeah, so the Border Patrol really starts talking about gotaways when they don't like who's in charge.
Well,
Otherwise, we don't give a shit. Otherwise, we don't give a shit.
and also when the numbers go down, and regarding these apprehensions and encounters, I can't tell you how many times I have had to explain the distinction to reporters and
Yeah, they
quote
don't, a
unquote
lot of don't understand.
journalists. And so they use the terms interchangeably without understanding this is a numerical shell game, and how
Yes.
critical it is that they use the proper terminology. I think,
Yep.
people consuming news in this country don't necessarily understand that. Geez, I mean, I've had reporters publish stuff that is basically made up and totally not, never mind accurate, it's not even true, because they
Mhm.
use the wrong words. They didn't understand what they were reporting on. But yeah, these gotaways, they crack me up. And whenever we encounter whether it's a local or state or federal law enforcement agent who talks about the gotaways, my husband started this and now I encourage everybody to do it. We go, wow, so every one of those represents a failure on your behalf. Every,
Well, no, but they would succeed if Biden would just let them do their job, Mariana.
oh yes, oh yes. I see them all handcuffed to trees in the wilderness so they can't.
I would catch you, but I can't.
Yeah, I can't get out of my air conditioned SUV. I can't.
And stop jerking off.
Yeah, I can't pause um Reacher or whatever, Netflix I'm streaming out here. And
Mm.
in order to pursue these people that we know are crossing out here, we know that they evaded us, these super sneaky migrants and the cartels with their invisibility cloaks, that outsmart our ISS and RAID and Anduril towers that are every 2 miles along the US border.
They
That's
rely
why.
too much on that technology, and quite frankly, you know, eventually, you know, when Trump is projecting that there's going to be a terrorist attack and it's going to be because somebody entered the southern border and because Border Patrol couldn't do their job, that's just, quite frankly, that's a given. And quite frankly, the Border Patrol can create that scenario. So one of the way the Border Patrols can create gotaways, and one way we did it back in the 90s to create gotaways because we didn't like Clinton at the time and wanted George W. Bush to win the election, is we just didn't chase them. We let them go, and then we counted the number of migrants. We were ordered not to go north of Highway 94. So then management could say, well, we didn't tell them not to chase them. But if they get north of the first paved highway, which in some areas is 2 minutes from the border road in Campo, in some areas it's probably like an hour from the border road walking through the brush. And so it depends a lot. And so essentially what they do is they create their own gotaways. And when I started talking publicly about the gotaways, Rodney Scott was the one that was chief in the beginning of Biden's administration, and he started pulling out the gotaways. What you have to understand about gotaway numbers is that they are maybe about half truthful numbers and half made up, or estimates, guesstimates at best. And you know, Border Patrol manipulates their numbers. In the early part of Operation Gatekeeper, when we first started deterrence policies, President Clinton demanded that, or his administration, I should say, demanded that Border Patrol down here in the city where Operation Gatekeeper was first brought on stop catching so many migrants, because it was making it look like the wall and Operation Gatekeeper didn't work. And so they literally ordered Imperial Beach agents to, when they brought in a group of 20 migrants, to only process 10 of them. There's nothing that prevents Border Patrol agents from taking a group of migrants and not processing them and pushing them back into Mexico. I've done it. It's illegal, but I have done it. Border Patrol agents do it all the time. And that can cut your numbers if you want it to cut your numbers. And agents actually protested this because they hated Bill Clinton, and they came forward. And then those same agents that came forward retracted their statements once the OIG investigation started. And this is all public. And they retracted their statements because they happened to be offered a promotion to supervisor at my station in Campo. And that's how I know that all that went down. So that investigation went down with the result of they misunderstood our orders. And so, but the rest of the time, so I started saying, you know, these getaway numbers are at best a guesstimate, and you really shouldn't use them, because like, even if you're really trying to guess at how many people you're tracking, and when you're tracking their footprints, you're seeing the back half of the group. So the front of the group, you know, you're not seeing at all. You're just seeing the people in the back end that are leaving the last footprint. So you can't really tell if it's 10, 20, 30, 100. Sometimes you can if they stop and mill around. But a lot of times it's just at best a guesstimate. And so when I started saying that these numbers are historically unreliable, and Border Patrol obviously always manipulates their statistics, they've been caught so many times in the past doing this. Then Chief Scott came out and said, no, these are only ones we see on camera. And I'm like, well, but how about the migrants you're apprehending in vehicle stops and up the road at checkpoints? Are you subtracting that from the gotaways? And it was dead silence. So they're really, they can manipulate it any way they want to. You can also manipulate the ident numbers. So if they're relying on just the ident numbers to tell you how many people they encounter, like I said at the beginning of this, just putting your fingerprints in there shows that you've been encountered. I've been encountered before because I was an ident instructor in the Border Patrol, and my fingerprints and my picture in uniform are in ident right now, still.
You know, at the Butterfly Center, we have people walking all over the property, and Border Patrol drags tires. They make these tire necklaces that they pull behind their trucks, and they you know, at every shift change would dragging the tires all around the property. And, you know, they claim that this practice is vital to detecting irregular entry into the United States. And, we'll have, we're open 7 days a week, and staff and visitors walking around with their cameras, photographing birds, butterflies, bobcats, whatever it is, all over the place. Even, me and the dogs going out running around. And then we'll run into Border Patrol and go, did you see all these footprints? Have you seen any? And we're like, we've been open for 6 hours already. We've had, 350 visitors today. If you're counting those footprints
Yeah.
as people that got away from you or you need to go chase, that is hysterical, especially since there's a tower right here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of that technology was deployed here after your time in the Border Patrol.
Oh,
But
yeah, definitely.
I have actually been in the McAllen Border Patrol station in the control room where the agents are using their little, PlayStation joysticks to control those cameras. And they're 360 degree views. They can see at least 10 miles into Mexico. They can zoom in on the butthole of a bunny rabbit. I mean, this technology is so good, so sophisticated. And to tell you some of what the agency's about and does, one Saturday we had a Girl Scout event, and we had 100 little girls in their green vests and skirts, and their mommies and troop leaders with them, and the parking lot's full of cars. You can tell that something big is happening at the Butterfly Center. And again, we're within spitting distance of one of these ISS towers with the 360 degree cameras and all this other technology. And we leave the visitor center with the little girls, and we're walking into the hackberry forest and through the gardens, and Border Patrol calls in a tactical raid on us.
With BORTAC? Did they call in BORTAC, or was it just the agents on the line?
I think it was mostly the field agents, but there was air support. There were the agents, rushing in on their 4-wheel ATVs, the trucks screeching to a halt at the end of the Hackberry Trail, and the agents, the Border Patrol agents, rushing in to surround us. And they had their, machine guns in hand.
Their assault rifles.
And as soon as they realized, I mean, you should have seen the confusion.
They probably felt like idiots.
Well, I hope they felt like idiots. And, they traumatized a bunch of these little girls. The moms and dads were completely confused as well. It was one of the biggest WTF moments of my life. And the patrol agent in charge of the McAllen station at that time was Melissa Lucio. And she and a deputy came out to visit me after that event to explain what had happened. And she explained that through the technology on these towers, they had detected at 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday with our full parking lot that a mass movement of human beings was happening across the property. Knowing that I've been in that control room and I've seen what they can see. I've seen them zooming in on license plates on vehicles driving down the road so they could run those plates. I've seen them doing all this. So I know they could see these were Girl Scouts.
They're children.
These were children and mommies, and not just children, but children all dressed uniformly. They could see these were Girl Scouts. They can see the troop numbers on their vests and all of the badges they've earned.
Yeah.
And
they're pretty good cameras.
This is how they chose to spend government resources, by targeting and harassing us and terrorizing and intimidating our visitors in order to get their jollies, in order to harm our business operation. Who the hell knows? But that firsthand experience taught me a lifetime worth of unwanted knowledge about the
truth of the Border Patrol, the
farce, about the truth,
all of this,
of Border Patrol. And I can only imagine how that got written up internally as their super fantastic day out protecting national security.
PAIC Lucio, stands for Patrol Agent in Charge. Lucio must have been pretty concerned about complaints from you if she physically got her ass out there and went to talk to you, or was she just trying to tell you this is what happened and this is the story that you're going to tell?
I'm not sure which it was, but I laughed at her and I probably cursed at her some and told her she was full of shit.
These women that get into the high level management are a lot of times worse than the men. The people that instituted or enacted the child separation policy during the Trump thing were all women. The DHS secretary was Nielsen at the time. She's a woman. The chief of the Border Patrol at the time was Carla Provost. She happens to be a woman. And then the chief in El Paso at the time is the chief who's now your chief in Rio Grande Valley, RGV for short, was the chief in El Paso at the time, Gloria Chavez, who I would like to congratulate. Her husband was just acquitted of raping a junior female agent back in 2019. Fortunately for him, I don't know if the criminal analyst working for Tucson PD, knew that the defendant was a Border Patrol agent, but she failed to test for rape drugs or anything when the victim came in. So that kind of was one of the deciding factors, because she admitted that she drank a lot and she went with him willingly, but that she did not consent to sex. And he said, well, I was just as drunk as she was, so I didn't really consent to sex either. So he got off, but I think a lot of it hinged on the fact that they didn't test her for any kind of rape drugs. Of course, they weren't allowed to talk about his past. They weren't allowed to talk about his past in the Border Patrol. And he was allowed to resign, like most of these high-ranking people do, and keep his pension before he was arrested. So what happens is these high-ranking people, they get in trouble with the law, and then they wait for months and allow these chiefs, the Border Patrol, which is against policy, but the Border Patrol allows these high-ranking people to get their affairs in order. Most of them have their 20, 25 years in, whatever they need, and so that they can retire. And then once they're officially charged, they will be considered a former Border Patrol agent. And then the press has to report it as that. And the public is confused about whether this was actually committed when the person was an actual agent or not. And so if you're being investigated internally by CBP or DHS for misconduct or things like that, then that information, because most of those investigators in OIG and in OPR, those are the internal affairs investigative arms of DHS and CBP, most of those people are ex-CBP and ex-Border Patrol agents. So they leak the investigations out. It's a good time to bring up this. I think this is a very serious issue with all these chiefs. We was it last year we had Tony Barker, Chief Tony Barker of the Border Patrol. He was expected to be one of the next chiefs, very high ranking. He was warned apparently by high-ranking Border Patrol agents that he was under investigation by CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility for using his rank and his position to force or suggest, I should say, this is allegedly, according to CBP, female agents to have sexual relations of some sort with him. He says they were all consensual. So he was allowed to retire. And then once he retires, CBP's not going to investigate anymore.
And these agents were not his superiors. They were underlings.
They were very junior female agents. This happens a lot. You can see pictures of the chief. Other chiefs. I put one out yesterday, and we're going to talk about this new chief that's under misconduct allegations of him with his arms around all these female agents, and you can tell he's just like, "Look at me!" And all the responses are like, "You get him, chief." And so that's a lot of what goes on in the Border Patrol. Like I've said in the past, the motto of the Border Patrol is honor first, but the men say on her first is how they say it.
I think it's important for people to understand that after Barker was allowed to retire from Border Patrol under shadow of the investigation concerning his allegedly inappropriate, potentially predatory sexual misconduct, he was then hired by the University of Texas, El Paso, where he would have a whole giant new pool of young, eager, impressionable, vulnerable young women in need of praise, good
Mentoring.
grades, mentoring, promotion, letters of recommendation, all kinds of things that he could then use
If he wanted to.
if he
We're not saying
wanted
he would. Maybe he
to.
had his lesson and he learned. I don't know. And it's alleged, so we don't know.
It is alleged.
Yeah, well, that's how the rape culture in the Border Patrol looks. If you're predator, if you're assaulter, if the person who's coming after you is up in higher management, they almost always look like a mentor.
The female agents who know what the organization is like, what the culture is like, who know
Yeah.
what they personally have suffered or their female colleagues have endured. And yet they pose for the ads recruiting women into Border
Mm-hmm.
Patrol. They
Mm-hmm.
go out and do these public events, ride in parades, speak at career day at schools, go and hand out lollipops at the elementary school and let kids look at their baton or their service
What kind of
weapon.
lollipops, though?
Well, God, we better hope they're not those damn fentanyl lollipops that another Border Patrol high ranking official has been seeking out and using allegedly, according to the investigation. Tell us
Well,
all.
that's why I wanted to get on this thing about the Chiefs. So we had Tony Barker last year. He was outed because of that. And once he retires, then the investigation stops because he's no more of an employee. And so whether there was actually a crime committed and all this, we don't know. We will never know because CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility is headed by a former Border Patrol agent. They will never leak that information out. These are all secret investigations. And
Maybe,
then
maybe they terminated all of the agents involved in setting up and recording and staging that fake migrant invasion on March 11th, 2021 for the investigation that I launched. Maybe they're all gone now and we'll just never know, and the investigation ended because they don't work here anymore.
no, they're still there. Get rid of people unless they absolutely have to. And even then, they'll move them into dispatch. I've seen Border Patrol agents who've committed like pedophilia crimes, child pornography crimes, and they've been arrested and they get time served and then they leave the Border Patrol, but they're rehired as like a dispatcher or they're rehired at CBP for something else. So they don't ever tend to really get rid of people unless they have no choice. But the problem that I've noticed this week is, so we've got former Chief Barker, very high ranking chief, working out of DC. That happened. And then we have this Dr. Alexander Eastman, who is actually a medical doctor for CBP and apparently flies along with special teams like BORSTAR, which is or BORTAC, which is Border Patrol's SWAT team. He apparently, a whistleblower came forward and said that I guess he had requested from the pharmacy at CBP. I guess they have a pharmacy, and sometimes apparently they mean medical doctors for these supposed operations that they're doing, like, I don't know, fake crossings or whatever they're doing. This one, apparently, they were going to the UN General Assembly meeting in New York, and they had to fly a helicopter there. And he said he needed lollipops laced with fentanyl in case any of the CBP Border Patrol guys got injured in this UN General Assembly meeting. I assume they were going to be on the rooftops securing things or something. I don't know. But
And
they were doing.
because that's happened how often? When is the last time there were
Yeah,
some
I
sort of
know. I don't know
uh
why CBP's doing this, but at any rate, they were doing this instead of, somebody else. But at any rate, it turns out that both Dr. Eastman and the helicopter pilot that was with him that day are really good friends. And they have been, according to an article, investigated in the past by CBP for ordering and stashing fentanyl lollipops. I mean, personally, we didn't have doctors in the Border Patrol back then, and CBP is obviously our parent agency now. And I was not an agent during that time. I mean, this is something that you hear the medics in the military carry, but the medics in the military, a lot of times, if they need painkillers to give to people who are injured, soldiers, law enforcement are injured. My understanding is that generally comes from a pin and it's jabbed into your leg or something like that. And it's something like morphine or codeine or something like that. I know that fentanyl can be medically prescribed, but in the
It is
form of
pri-
lollipops,
no, fentanyl
it's not
is
going to hit you right away, is it?
it is so strong. It is so
Is it?
powerful. It is primarily used for, intended as anesthesia administered by anesthesiologists, by medical doctors, often board certified and highly, highly, highly insured. This is one of the most dangerous areas of medicine that anyone can go into because errors with anesthesia happen, often with fatal consequences. And so fentanyl is used by anesthesiologists in surgical theaters, whether that's in a hospital or in a conflict zone, in a field hospital or something like that.
A
But
highly controlled area. Yeah.
highly controlled substance in highly controlled areas, and it was never meant for use by the general public or as a recreational drug. You know, it can be a party favor, a party drug like raves, sex parties, um, and even as the new date rape drug, instead of working really hard to roofie someone to get you know, a substance in somebody's drink that may render them incapacitated so that
And
non
then maybe the analyst won't test it for that. Huh. Huh.
yeah, you know, we have Alexander Eastman, this medical chief who allegedly is seeking these out. He is not an anesthesiologist. These are in lollipop form, so obviously not going to be used in a surgical setting or urgent.
Not for immediate relief. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and an emergency situation. And there's policy, you know, he's been investigated for this. There's policy against it. So reportedly, he writes his own policy
To allow
without
him to carry fentanyl lollipops. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but I got to say, like, we were talking about this beforehand, and you and I both went looking at each other like, who likes lollipops? I don't know. I think people should be looking into perhaps if he's luring, unfortunately, we have to say,
the kind
children
of
with
people who
lollipops. Why is he using these lollipops? I think that needs to be investigated. So then now the third chief who to be removed, which sounds like he was fired, but I guarantee you he probably wasn't fired, is Deputy Chief Joel or Joel Martinez, however he chooses to pronounce that.
Well, the last report I saw was he's on administrative leave. So he's
yeah.
paid. He's still being paid
Yeah,
on
he's still
administrative
being
leave.
paid. He's the deputy chief of the entire U.S. Border Patrol, which means he's Chief Owen's second man in charge of the entire U.S. Border Patrol, in charge of nearly 20,000 men and women. And all we are being told is that he has been, quote unquote, removed from his position, and that because of privacy policy within the Border Patrol, they can't say why. At the same time, the chief of the academy, Chief Landrum, was also, according to Allie Bradley, who is a journalist in right-wing media, and she's the only one that said this, but said that he has also been removed from the academy for misconduct. And yet they won't say what exactly it is. Let me tell you, as in being in charge of the U.S. Border Patrol, Chief Owens, we expect you to secure our borders. You work for the people of the United States of America. We are the ones that pay your salary. We expect, especially after the last insurrection when the Border Patrol was just down the street and didn't bother to respond for 3 hours, we expect you, as people who say you know all about national security and this and that, to tell us the truth and to be honest with Americans about what is going on. So, yeah, we want to know what's going on. Why are you letting these chiefs retire, get their pensions, and get their shit together so they can get all that before anything comes down the line? Why are you allowing such high-ranking Border Patrol agents under the suspicion of misconduct to just not even have a response over what you're doing? I mean, I just cannot believe that they think they don't owe anybody an explanation for what is going on in that agency.
Well, they don't.
They just stay silent and they do whatever they want.
They
If this was
don't.
Director Wray, he would have to come out and say something about that, about the FBI, but
They
not the Border
don't.
Patrol. What is your thought on this, Marianna? Do you think the chief needs to come out and tell the public what's going on, or do you think that they should be allowed to keep all of this quiet? You know, the Border Patrol agents who are being arrested for alleged sexual assault, Border Patrol agents who are misusing their authority to intimidate, you know, other Border Patrol agents into having sex with them, Border Patrol agents who, or CBP agents who are giving out fentanyl-laced lollipops just to have a good time while they're guarding the UN General Assembly's meeting. You know, what do you think about all this? It's just that attitude that the Border Patrol has always had, that we're not accountable to anybody.
Well, they're not.
Or is
They're
it more
not.
than that?
They're not accountable to anyone. And, you know, there's what should happen and there's what is going to continue to happen. And, you know, I think Border Patrol, policing in this country in general, and even our elected officials, you know, Matt Getz, a sexual predator who paid girls for sex, you know,
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, his buddy who was doing all of that
He says
with
he
him
did, but yeah,
is in jail, was convicted for these things. But, you know, and our Supreme Court justices, none of them are being held accountable for their ethical violations, for their alleged criminal activity, or actual, in some cases, proven criminal activity.
They have the rape culture that they've always hidden, that I and others have proven over and over again. They've been raping female Border Patrol agents since the first day we entered the academy in 1975. I'm one of them. This other victim of alleged victim of Gus Zamora says she's another one of them. There are many of us. And then you have victims of Tony Barker. And then you have supposed misconduct by this Chief Martinez. And as we found out recently on the 21st, on Wednesday, unfortunately, we were right. Deputy Chief Martinez was relieved of his position. He's going to retire, keep his pension. And the reason for that was apparently he was insisting that junior female agents have sex with them. So the same thing. Once again, here we are. And then we have this other chief at the academy with all these young women, young impressionable women, and we don't know why he's been let go as well. It could be corruption. It could be lots of things. But I'm wondering if it's not the rape culture, and they don't want to say that because I'm always so on the rape culture and they know I'm going to jump on that shit.